What's cooking tonight? Big pot of stew.
I'm cooking. I think I'm having a flash.
You need a popsicle.
Yes.
Definitely need popsicle. Jeff is not going to be here tonight, I'm sorry to report. He went fishing. So I am here in his place. I hope you do not mind. I have vast amounts of wisdom. I am a little bit different. You may call me Yogi Jeff.
Sure, why not?
You have paid at the door, yes? The more you pay at the door, the more enlightenment you get. I keep it bottled in the bag, and if you pay lots of money when you come into a room, I give you lots of bottles. It's so simple. People, they complicate things. It's so simple. Okay, we done?
Sort of brings to mind to me the sort of surprising nature of the multitude of personality selves, that show up. And how there's now lots of theories that we actually have many self states.
In this life, or
in our personality, like psychologically, there's a lot of theory now called like we call IFS, which is internal family systems, and that we internalize all these different states from the people that our original family, so we might have a certain self state when we're dealing with our mother, completely separate from the kind of self state we have when we're at work or whatever. They're very, tend to be separate personality ego states. Another way to say it. So just wondering which one that was.
The supremely goddamn enlightened one.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
I know you're not.
You sound like somebody I know from India.
I hope so. I have marbles in my mouth to make the effect, highly.
It's lovely.
I have 3 years of seeing and watching, Indian gurus. You can't help but to love. There are too many that have an accent like that. I don't know where that comes from, but you can't help but to love that. It's so, just rhyming and poetic and jingly and jangly and so positive. The Indian accent is so positive. I agree with that self-state thing. You act differently, you bring out different facets of your personality with different people. I know that to be true, both pre and post awakening. For instance, if I'm at a job and I'm working with some rednecky guys or whatever, in order to just be, I don't want to be pretentious or anything, I'll kind of drop down to I can speak that lingo, So I think we all kind of do that.
I think guys do it more than women.
Yeah, you think so? Well, I definitely can vouch for it. Or if I'm with my sister or with my mother, or different relatives, different colors, different holding backs, moving forward. I'm more reserved. This and that, the other thing.
Yeah, depending on how you look at it. I think you could say that that's a positive quality, that guys can just go with the flow more, and maybe, I don't know if it's an ego thing, but women are more.
I would think that that's more of just a well-adjusted personality. I mean,
I don't know. I also found it to be not pretentious, but to be inauthentic.
Well, it can. I would agree with that. Yeah, I think if you took it too far, then you're just like you got a face for everybody, but you don't have a real face, you know, and that could be kind of inauthentic. But on the other hand, there's kind of I think rolling with the punches, and when in Rome, do as the Romans do, and not
relate to people where they are.
Yeah, exactly. Relating to people where they are and meeting people, and I think that's authentic.
Yeah.
And if you adjust your personality slightly to meet that person, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But if it becomes chronic and you're lying and you're just full of shit, that's a whole other thing,
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between kind of changing a little bit of your, not your person, but how you present yourself, as opposed to. I'm not gonna walk into a client's home and kind of, sit down and, all right, here we are, let's go. Let's talk about death. I mean, obviously, you gotta.
Yeah, there's you're professional when you need. This actually brings up a very good point. I mean, this whole Yogi Jeff thing. I think that probably I was making some videos today for online. And I was trying to be, just be down to earth and myself and funny, and and that's one of the things that I did, but I didn't end up keeping it. But it does bring up this, and I can tell you this about one of the things that I believe about the trickiness of awakening teachings, is that I could in these videos, and I could pretend to be long pauses, speaking like this.
As many of them do.
Hush whisper.
Yes. And putting on all of the personality. I think some of that is true and indicative of awakening, and their personalities are expressing this authentically. But what that I think also can make for is that teachers only want to express themselves that way, because that's how awakening non-dual Advaita Vedanta teachers are expressing themselves. So it's the popular way to express yourself, and it also becomes politically correct to be expressing yourself that way, because you're speaking in front of a lot of people. So it tends to be more demure, it tends to be more polite, it tends to be more soft-spoken and compassionate. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't, I'm not putting it down. But boy, it was always a breath of fresh air for me when I would go to a teacher and they didn't care. They just totally let it out. Both their good qualities in their personality and their bad qualities in their personality. There was one particular teacher, A. Ramana, who he passed away now. He was an Advaita teacher, studied with Papaji. And he was like a Harley Davidson riding, 200 proof, drinking. I bet that guy had a tattoo. I'm serious. And he would say "fuck" in satsang like that was just a divine word. And I really was like, after. This was around the time where I was just sleeping around with everybody, right? Sitting with all the teachers, so a lot of them were taking on that quality. They were taking on and being that soft-spoken.
Did you see that change though? I mean, did you say taking it on, so what were they before?
Well, you're right. I don't know what they were before, so I'm out on a limb here.
Maybe it's just kind of the default place that a lot of people default to when they're in that state.
And also, it's a default place when you're teaching too, because you tend to blossom into, at least I do, into the peak experience quality of awakening. So you tend to, yes indeed, you tend to be more grounded and here in the body and present, and your visual perception is wide open, and you have this great unitive feeling. It's a blissful feeling. I don't know. I guess as more of a artistic person who was involved in drama and person who was involved in acting and music and all the rest of that, I don't feel the need to necessarily embody that all the time because I like humor so much and I like to just express my dorky personality. I got no problem with that. Well, this is how A. Romano was, and I just loved that quality. I thought there was something very authentic about that. There was just something that he just wasn't giving you the shiny, clean, neat version of Awakening. And so the more I actually found teachers like that, the more I was impressed, and the more that I found it very, very real. And then in meeting teachers close up, picking them up at the airport, bringing them home, having arranged, maybe you guys don't know who he is, but he's a pretty famous Awakening teacher. And I caught him before he was pretty big. He had a big selling book called Luminous something or another. I mean, he's a great guy, but he's also a flawed character, and he would be the first one to admit it. That's what I mean. I saw the backstage, saw backstage what was going on, and by no means are any of these teachers perfect. You know, Gangaji and Eli had their public thing that broke out that had to do with sexuality and infidelity, and also something I found quite weird in abstinence. They never once taught abstinence in their teaching, yet they had been abstinent for a long, long time. Am I saying the right word? Sexually abstinent. Yeah.
Okay.
So they're just, everybody has their flaws, and I think that the best kind of quality is to have your shadow sitting right frickin' next to you. You know, guess what? You know, I'm a potty mouth, you know, flat vision, beer drinking, blue collar guy, and get used to it, because enlightenment is not this perfect, awakening is not this perfect thing that the mind wants to imagine that it is. Let's put it another way. All personalities are totally welcome in awakening. All the facets, all the different personalities. Awakening can handle your personality. It's a really, I guess, a beautiful way of looking at it. You don't no longer have to be at war with your personality. You no longer have to be at war with your ego. You know, you no longer have to be at war with mind. You just welcome it in. You know, it's like I always say when in mindfulness is my retarded kid brother, right?
What'd you say?
My retarded kid brother is my mind. And it, you know, and sometimes he's like right next to me, just babbling away, and I'm just like, God, can you just shut up for a minute, you know? And other times he's way over there in the corner, and he's just sitting there doing he's fine, you know. But he's always there. It's just the difference is, and you guys know this, I say this all the time, he's not flying the airplane anymore. You know, so yeah, I find that I love that topic of personality, you know, and how it manifests itself in awakening with different people and different teachers. I think quite lovely. I'm so glad I sat with so many different teachers. I really am. It gave me an eye opener. I wasn't just getting tunnel vision that this is how you act. I mean, if you know what do little ducklings do and little animals do? They imprint, right? So in mindfulness and in brain, you know, there's in the science of the brain, there's an imprinting going on that we've discussed before that has to do, I forget not neurogenesis, but those nerve cells.
Mirror neurons?
Mirror neurons, yes. So imprinting, mirror neurons. So that definitely goes on with students and teachers, or students in groups, or first graders and their teacher, you know, any learning, I think, situation that's happening.
It's the only way we can. I mean, it's the only way we develop as human beings, apparently, is to be with.
Right.
You know.
So here we are. This is very much about evolution and development, and there's imprinting going on. So I think it's best not to imprint to one person. Absolutely. And I'm so glad that I got to see the truth. I got to see the truth that was behind all the multiple personalities. You know, because there were all the multiple personalities and all their glory, and in all their inglory, and then, but what was there that was consistent with all of them? And that lesson is really, I think, important and very valuable in the awakening process, because it whittles it down to just something that is attainable. It no longer seems out of reach when, oh wow, look at that flawed son of a bitch. If he can do it, I can do it. Jesus Christ. You know, God, he's actually somewhat of an idiot. If he can wake up, I can. You know, and that's in many ways. There were some teachers I kind of felt that way. I was like, okay.
Do you think they were all really awakened? I mean, like I have my doubts about a couple of people that are pretty big, you know.
Yeah, I feel I got to be everybody that I'm speaking of. I feel, at least for me, was awakened in the sense that I know it. So I'm not. So they could have their flawed personality, but there's another quality to their personalities, to their bodies, to their minds that I could tell too, just by meeting them in person, the presence that they reflected. It does have, yes, and that part does indeed, and that's how we kind of sense awakening has to do with presence. So in many ways, if you're teaching this stuff, you probably, if you're a smart teacher, you probably want to make sure you do a lot of that presence stuff. Otherwise, your teaching isn't going to sell because people aren't going to think that you're, awake, because the judgmental mind is going to compare it to others that are just that way, and that's a totally normal and natural response. It's just that isn't the whole truth, and that's what I'm going to be careful about. That's not the whole truth. This keeping so still and deep and profound. I'm not this way when I walk into a grocery store. No, I am not. At 7 a.m. when Jeremy gets out of bed and I have to wake up and he bounces on my face, and it's usually the butt that hits my face. I am not this.
Holding the form, as they said.
Is that right? Is that what they say? Holding the form, right? See, if there's any holding, it's bullshit. Okay? If you have to
You're not supposed to be holding.
Yeah, you're not holding. This is what I'm saying. It's all welcome. So I'm not holding on to anything. It's just flowing in and out. Personality appears sometimes more forefront. At other times, it is beingness that appears more forefront. I like the balance. I don't like to be just the soft-spoken teacher type,
So it doesn't really matter, all that personality stuff, because I keep remembering a friend in West Virginia that whenever he'd get around local folks, he'd just start talking a whole lot louder and a whole lot more. Oh yeah, buddy, he would get real animated, and it was like, it just felt so fake to me. But who cares? I mean, really. So I mean, is that just? I mean, why would I care whether he's that way? And then it's different with other people that he knows better. But is that all ego? Just like wanting to put you in a box kind of thing? Like, wait a minute, that's not who you are.
Well, for a person, it only becomes complicated in this sense, Jan, when we get into spirituality. When that guy's just being that guy, you're right, who cares? He's totally fine the way he is,
I found it annoying that he would, I understood it, but I was like, you don't have to put on just be yourself.
Right. Well, some people don't know.
But I mean, maybe that's not.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So what if
that is who you are in the moment?
Right, that's who he was in the moment. What if he just really enjoyed that person? I mean, that gave him joy to perform that way.
Right.
He now had an audience, so he could, let it rip.
Yeah.
So to speak. So some
might have put him in a box.
I mean, he was doing that because he had some kind of, childhood experience or that kind of stuff. And, he felt like he had to fit in with the guys or something, and he wanted to, he overdid it because of that. I don't know.
Well, all personalities in one sense or another have this center of attention need. And so that can be okay and normal and well-adjusted if you're just doing it every now and then it can be neurotic, where that's all you're trying to do, and that's how you're trying to find fulfillment. I think that from the awakening point of view, you do need to see that about your personality. You do need to see that it is definitely seeking at all times. It wants fulfillment at all times. It's scratching at the door to get out. The personality of who is self, what are we looking at here in this class? Okay, who am I then? That needs to be fundamental. And then that is where it turns into the big nothing. You are nothing. You are consciousness. You are everything that is manifest. What is really fun about awakening, okay, is that once you've taken off the personality cloak and thrown it on the floor, what's fun about awakening is that you can pick the damn thing back up, put it on again, and pretend, and act, and wear it comfortably. And it doesn't have the sting or the bother or some quality that it had before. So you just put on the personality because you need to have a personality here in this world to function, to communicate, to do this, to do that. Up to that point, it's not so fun, though, is it?
Well, it depends on which personality is showing itself, I suppose.
What's that?
I said it depends on which personality is, knocking on the door.
We're talking about your personality and yours, and not, that's the part I'm referring to. It's not fun. It's the pain of being a separate personality.
Right.
But I mean, can you, in an awakened state, like, take on other personalities that you didn't know existed before?
No, I'm not capable of doing such thing. Never done that.
I mean, I bet you played with that, though, before you had your awakening experience.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No. To answer your question, I'm not, there is just emptiness, vastness that I'm aware of, that I am. And then there's the personality of Jeff that is kind of a layer on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, like I said before, having the personality of Jeff is a pain in the ass. And I wish I could just shed the whole thing for days on end, months on end, But that's not what I know to be true about awakening. Ego, death, no personality, living in some total vast impersonal state where nothing affects you or touches you is not only bullshit, I think that it is psychotic.